Thank you, Alex, and thank you everyone for coming this morning. We'll try and keep it a bit lively for you and see where we can head to. Just a couple of pieces. I've been in the industry for 20 odd years, or a fair bit more than that, but I won't go any further. One of the first things I want to talk about was resilience, and I know this is the resilience conference, so I'm sure everyone's understood, and there's a lot of people talking about resilience. To me, resilience doesn't equal reliance, resilience doesn't equal reticence, and resilience definitely is not equal to being restrictive. The key about resilience is it's being able to actually retain or recover from an impact. And the most important fact is, it's being able to have that resilience. And most people in the world understand the nature of being resilient now. One of the key other aspects to think about as we go through this is society in general is very quick to expectation of every action is it has to be perfect. The idea of resilience is that you can recover, and you can recover well from being resilient, and that's one of the key factors. We're quite quick to judge these days, but little less, understanding of going and getting the facts first and then actually judging afterwards. That's a key part of, especially in critical operational infrastructure. It is so critical, it's got to be operational. That's the main part of resilience. So what I thought I'm going to run through a few slides. I'm really keen on the interaction of questions and answers, so I'll try and get through some. Hopefully it invokes some form of thought, and then happy to answer any questions. I did a similar session in Canberra, and it actually went to time, so more than happy to answer any questions as we go through. So firstly, I wanted to talk about threat metrics. I like using this slide. It's freely available online. It was done by Hulse and Verint in 2019. The key part about it is looking at the threat actors that are actually looking at you in the marketplace. So I won't go through each of the percentages and so forth, because those do change. But the significant element, there's a couple of interesting points of recent days. In the actual cyber hacking, or the actual the hacking community, the cyber criminal element, I'm not sure if everyone's seen, but there's a whole piece on human trafficking in Asia, especially coming out of Hong Kong, Taiwan, Vietnam and Thailand, going into places like Cambodia and Myanmar. And so they actually grab people on premise of actually having a role, and then they bring them into compounds, and then they forcibly retain them while they're doing hacking activities back out into the world. They've got to generate revenues out of that. It's just another element from a threat actor perspective that not everybody that's trying to do this is actually doing it out of their own personal gain. They're coerced. I mean, to the point the media articles were talking about, people were forcibly retained, beaten and so forth to do this. So the threat actor component, when people are in times of stress and duress, they are going to actually be very, very persistent, innovative about how they do pieces. The other key factor is about the capabilities in that slide, and actually looking at the actual capabilities of different actors. Hacktivists will always actually look at infrastructure if they actually have an emotional element that they're trying to attack. So that is one level. Generally not as sophisticated as the other areas. Definitely the cyber criminals are very sophisticated. In the state-based out of experience, that is a reality. The state-based are out there. The ability to embed in infrastructure is real. I've seen it plenty of times in plenty of places. The biggest thing I can get through on this slide is, because you cannot see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And I've plenty of examples over my career of organisations, critical infrastructure, that believe they've actually done the right tests, but something is embedded in there, and the whole point about state-based is they're not necessarily going to tell you they're in there, because they want the constant information, the constant ability to actually understand what's going on. You'll only ever know if they want to actually invoke something. So that's just a bit of a setting of the scene. So what I'm going to go through now is a piece around the current state, where we are. I'll then go through some actions to take and and recap on where we should be trying to get to. So the first part is, just got to get my clicker on, is governments and mandates. Guidance and mandates. As a country, as a global community, there are plenty of mandates out there. Too many mandates to work on. I've got a few parallel critical infrastructure implementations working on, 13 mandates to follow. And if you ask them which one is the primary one, nobody can answer it. And to go further, SOCI Act wasn't even one of those 13 mandates. So as a community, to actually build, embed resilience into critical infrastructure, we have to get down to a simple set of mandates. Yes, there are multiple governance structures for different elements, risk, safety, etc. But from a cyber perspective, it has to become simple. The other thing I was going to say, if I do say something that actually you disagree with, that's great. What I'm trying to do is get to a common platform, because just because there is an exception to something I say doesn't mean that we're common across the whole piece. If somebody has something that says, yep, we're doing that, that's a great tick in the box, absolute tick in the box. So the next piece is resources and capability. It's such a mixed bag. We're so driving forward on, we've got to train, we need 1 million people or 3 million people or whatever the number is tomorrow. The whole point is they have to be capable. And in OT, there is such a lack of OT capability. So we have to address that in a different way. It's not just about throwing bodies at it. When I started, cybersecurity wasn't even a term. So the people that were in it were people who actually just had an interest in breaking things, in working out how to improve. We have to embed some of those skills, and especially in critical infrastructure. So it's not just your background in IT, it's actually your background in everything that you do. So we have to sort of embed that, and really, as a critical infrastructure, to embed that, that's how we actually not just communicate with each other, but how we build the engineering expertise with the cybersecurity expertise and so forth. Having worked in Thales and other organisations, I can tell you that it is absolutely critical to build on that. Risk comprehension and threat knowledge is really interesting, and you'll see all of these are red in my eyes, but we talk about threat intelligence. We don't do threat intelligence, we do threat information. There's a really big difference between it. Now, take the marketing buzzwords out, we absolutely need to move to threat intelligence. There's a lot of activities to go forward from collecting a bunch of potential threats in other infrastructures to actually having threat intelligence that's relevant to your OT specific site or infrastructure. Risk comprehension, this is going to sound pretty amazing, but so many organisations still don't go through a risk profile, not a cyber risk profile, but understanding their risk and then apportioning that to cyber. Where can it impact? There's still a gap in that. Now, admittedly, the SOCI review, the Home Affairs is going through a current program on risk, which is great. It's a great advancement of that. But the risk is the number one. It's said ad nauseum. OT risk is even more critical because people are not considering the mechanical elements of their environment that's digitised that they actually need to then bring into that risk profile. The more we digitise, the more those mechanical elements come in. Sovereign capacity and innovation. I have worked in a number of innovation or sovereign startup organisations. We have to draw the line and work out what is innovation, what is a sovereign capability as well. From a resilience perspective of an environment, an OT environment, we need to absolutely drive the ability to operate on our own in times of duress, like we've just been through over the last few years, but also on an innovation platform, how do we get out the issues to the innovators? There's one thing about calling innovation the duplication of a technology that's elsewhere, and there's a lot of that. But true innovation is actually finding a problem, finding an issue, and OT has a lot of issues to solve, and how do you get that out into the market? So that's where the collaboration within the OT markets, the individual market structures, and getting those to the innovators is going to be key. So we've still got a way to go. There's a lot of activity. I'm not saying that we're not going anywhere, but it's a lot of activity got to be focused on critical infrastructure. Implementation and action. I'm only going to give I've heard this a few times, I'm going to repeat it. You can go and talk to people about the risk, talk to people what they're looking at. So many times I've had the comment, that looks great, I'll implement it in 2025. Cybersecurity is not next year, cybersecurity is now. And next year it'll be a different risk and it'll be a different challenge. So we're still getting that through into the critical infrastructure world of what to do. Response preparedness, I won't mention anything recently, I'm just saying, that is absolutely key. Going back to what I said about resilience, The response preparedness is absolutely key. What are you going to do if, when something happens? How are you going to interact? What information are you going to put out? How are you going to talk about it? A lot of people have got disaster recovery plans and business continuity plans, but how are you going to do it from a cyber perspective? Everything's changing. We absolutely need to get that up and moving. So, different slide set. Anyway, the order has changed around a wee bit. That's perfectly fine. I'll give you the long-term vision, and then I'll go back to what the steps are to move forward. So, from a long-term vision, the perspective. I say I've got a single framework. I don't think we'll ever get to a single framework, but we have to get down to a subset of smaller frameworks to work on. Yes, there are good technologies out there. I've seen some around the floors. I won't mention names, but there are some technologies out there that allow you to aggregate multiple governance structures and actually understand, do it once and apply it to many structures. That's great. That's a great position. But from a governance and mandates perspective, we absolutely have to provide more guidance, because it's great to go and put a framework out there. It's great to go and have, for example, the SOCI Act. Conversations we have on the ground, people still don't know what to do. I guess that's part of our advisory, but they should have some inkling of what to do. Great example, the SOCI Act calls for the Essential 8 to be implemented. Essential 8 is a great tool, a great set of actions, doesn't directly relate to critical infrastructure. You have to be sensible about how you implement it and sensible about how you put it in play. So we need to get down to more of a common set of frameworks to actually apply. Resources and capability. So the discipline experts, the word cybersecurity is great. It has changed. There is not one cybersecurity expert. I'm not an expert. I will never call myself an expert because I'm always learning about cyber. There's always more to do. We need discipline. I call them experts now. I've just broken my own rule, but we need to actually have discipline capabilities and have them skilled, trained, apportioned as discipline capabilities. If we don't do that, we are going to miss the boat of how we actually build resilience, because it's like any other industry. There are certain people, if you look at the IT industry as a whole, there are certain people who can do cloud, there are certain people who can do AI, etc., etc. The same has to apply to cyber. It's not just one cybersecurity expert. Engineers, there is no qualification for a cyber engineer in the country. There are people looking for cyber engineers, and I'm talking engineers who understand operational environments. I know it's on the cards, I know it's coming, but again, this is something where we have to get to from a future perspective. The resilient capability, I think that's where we actually have the talent pool. We need to be able to train people, and again, it's not just training people on a SANS course, and as good as they are, I'm not denouncing them, they are good. It's about getting them specifically trained in OT environments. On the ground training, it is so different when we're trying to resolve an issue on the ground to when you're actually trained about it. We have to get that built up, and that's got to be just common practice. Threat and risk. So going back to my threat information versus threat intelligence, we need to get real threat intelligence. We don't share very well. We do get the alerts. We are starting to share, and yes, again, as the industry, I think we're moving forward, which is a good tick in the box. But we need to start to actually share that threat intelligence a bit more, to drive it, to take it from information to intelligence that's specific to your environment. So there is a way to get there, but I think we have to start using the right terminology at the right levels of what we're looking at. Risk profiles, you need a risk profile across your business, and then asset vulnerability. In operational technology, very few people understand the vulnerabilities of their operational assets. Whether it be a piece of hardware that was developed in 1990 that's running a piece of code that can send it into a state of entropy and you can actually read everything off it, through to some new piece of camera kit or something that's been put somewhere in the region. So understanding your OT assets is absolutely key. We have to get there. As soon as a vulnerability comes out, if you don't know every point in your organisation where that vulnerability impacts, that's a problem. Innovation and resilience. I think resilient sovereign capacity. At the moment, we do, as a country, rely a lot on fly-in, fly-out expertise in engineering and critical infrastructure. We need to actually start to embed a lot of that expertise in the country. It doesn't mean you're never going to get away from it. Similarly, I think our expertise should be actually going overseas and actually showing the intelligence that we have in the country and doing that. The innovation pipeline, what I was saying before, we need to get a mechanism where the problems are out. Most people hate to tell people their problems. So if you don't know the problem, you can't fix it. As a nation, Australia, I find, is very innovative when it understands what the problem is it's trying to fix. So from a critical infrastructure place and embedding resilience, if it's happening in one organisation, it's quite likely happening in the rest, in a market, so whether that be energy, water, etc. So we need to get to that point where we're actually embedding the ability to share these threats in a way that is not going to impact the business. And so that's a challenge, I admit, but I think that's something that, I've talked in Canberra about it. It's something that I'm passionate about, because if we get these issues out there, we can then start to resolve the issues as we need to. Clear threat sharing parameters, it's such an interesting one. The people we're trying to protect against have better threat sharing capabilities than we do. They have more trust than we do. If you think about this conference, there's a large amount of people here who have a commercial interest in the conference. I'm no different. However, people hate to share threats easily. We need to set the parameters around the threat sharing. What is actually threat sharing? What's real threat sharing? And how do we actually get that out there? Because if we don't, going back to what I said, a vulnerability comes out, the people that we're trying to protect against have much better visibility in a lot of cases of where their targets are than we would. So there's some things that we need to actually move to in the future. And I think that it's possible, but we have to make a little bit of an emotional step change and actually start to look at where we're actually going to move to. Implementation and action. I think it's interesting. We need to trust what's out there. We need to automate a little bit more, but it's not just about putting products out there. One of the key areas is, how do we actually go and look at what we've got and how do we trust it? So I probably could say that the majority of people here have got a lot of equipment or have put a lot of equipment in there and probably can't say exactly how it's actually working in an environment. There's a thought that it's working. I can take threat monitoring, for example, in OT environments. There's so many false positives coming out there. So how do you trust 14,000 alerts? How do you get a team to actually understand which of those alerts are there? So we have to sort of build that into the technology and the capability. Trusted automation, it's so contra to critical infrastructure. If you've got a safety critical system and you've got something doing an automated response, that is so contra to the actual mentality of an engineering thing. We're going to have to get there. The threats are going to come thicker and faster. The automation of pushing out a threat or pushing out an attack is actually is getting much quicker than we can respond to. So we're going to have to at some point take in the action of how do we build in automated threats but keep the safety element of safety critical systems running. It's an interesting paradigm. Having worked in everything from defence to air traffic to rail to all the other areas, it is such a big gap to go to, but it's something that we have to take on. There are technologies out there, but I think we've got to start small. It's like having an aeroplane that has 4 redundant systems. An aeroplane can fly on its own, doesn't really need a pilot, but we as humans still need somebody to sit in that front seat to make us feel safe. So we need to work through that. And the last one is assurance and incident response. I think assurance for me is, we are still struggling with getting the assurance, going back to what I said about capabilities. We're still struggling to get the assurance especially at higher levels of organisations, to actually feel comfortable that they're protected. We're putting a lot of requirements on boards and executives, and if there is a cyber incident, they're all held responsible as directors, etc. We still struggle to get clear advice and clear comfort at that level, and that goes all the way through the chain. That's not just them, but if you can't get it to the top, you're definitely not getting it further down in the chain. So for me, the future is, how do we get those reports? How do we get all of the information that we're collecting? And we're collecting a lot of information, but how do we get that and understand that it's actually really doing the job? But that's aligning where you're going to what you actually have. Different presentation, I won't go to that one. So near-term actions to take. So what are some of the things that we should be doing now? So visibility. Number one is, you've got to have a vision. If you don't know where you're going back to my point about mandates, if you don't know the vision of where you want to be in 5 years' time or 3 years' time, you're never going to get there. You're just going to wander aimlessly. And so many organisations, because they haven't set the vision, They're still struggling to go, well, what are the next steps? So they're reactively buying equipment or solutions or getting consultancy in to do this, that and the other, but there's no real direction of where they're heading. So that's number one key, is get the visibility. The talent pool is really interesting. The staff have to have a purpose. If your staff have a purpose, they actually will deliver it for you. If they're just saying, just protect me from cyber, it's okay, don't worry about it, then that's going to be something that, you know, they're going to wander around doing what they want to do rather than what they need to do. So we really do need to start to drive that staff purpose. And when people have purpose, they do well. Covering fire, I think I won't go to recent events, but covering fire is so important when people are actually in there trying to fix something or trying to do something, know that they're actually protected. We all make mistakes, I make mistakes, everyone makes mistakes, but as long as they're protected, that's the most important part. Knowledge and experience, again, maybe a bit controversial. Be very wary of expertise that's put out there. Be mindful of it and apply your own logic to what's being said. Because there are far too many experts in the industry right now. Some people are incredibly smart, incredibly intelligent. Some people are actually telling you different things. You've got to apply your own and actually make sure that you're building up that knowledge and experience. Threat and risk, we've talked about threat and risk. I think, you know, threat assessments, you know, definitely look at your zone, your area of risk. Look at how you actually apportion that in a market. Risk assessment of your assets, absolutely look at each of your assets. I'm talking going down into the operational mechanical assets and then having a look at that and then embedding into that the vulnerability, so looking at the vulnerabilities. And threat information to threat intelligence. Start taking IT grade threat information, start to look at threat intelligence, the physical environment, all of the different environments that you have, that brings together your threat intelligence. I can give you an example of a piece of critical infrastructure. I won't tell you the market. Very recently did a study of SCADA PLC systems. There is a PLC cabinet in a car park for public access. It's that level that we have to get to. I could go into that, it had no significant key lock. It was a standard key I could buy down at an electrician store, and I can get in there and plug a USB into there. So my point is, understand the risks and the assets. Innovation and resilience. Near term, probably not going to be the most that people are going to focus on, but know what you have. So many people have got so much product, so know what's out there. Product proliferation, you only have to go to level 2. Product proliferation is key. I've got 5-minute warning, so I've got to hurry up. But you know, don't just go and buy products, know where you're going with it. Purposeful, not reactive. Make sure that every action you take is purposeful and not reactive. Sorry, I'm speeding up now, but happy to take questions afterwards outside over here as well. So in conclusion, you have to preempt the threat. So it's not easy, right? Identify and diagnose the weaknesses. So really get out there and start to understand your risks, understand your vulnerability risks, and start to have a plan of what's going to happen. It is happening. Know where you are going. If we're going to build critical infrastructure in this country to actually be completely reliant on itself and all reliant on each other, communications is a central piece. You know, what's your goal? Do you want to be totally secure, or do you just want to actually fill a checkbox so you can actually meet a mandate? And know where you're actually heading to. What's your reality? Most people don't know where their reality is. So know where you're going, know where you are, and then the very last piece, be clear on what you are going to do. Actually do what you say you are going to do. And validate you have done what you said you would do. Now, apologies on speeding through that last component, but I do only have 5 minutes left. So any questions in that last 5 minutes?
Jeremy, you've got a little bit more than that. I'm just over here with the mic, so I can hand this to anyone with a question. But you've still got about sort of 12 minutes, but leaving 10 for questions.
That's right. I misunderstood the question. See, I mean, I've got a fact check here.
So if there's anything you want to expand on before we do go to questions?
No, I think my bit is vision. Understand your vision. of where you are. Reality is understand where you are, truly understand, and double check. Don't just take one system or one piece of advice. Absolutely be critical and check where you're going. Really dive into those assets. Don't assume that because you've got an air gap system, and I'm yet to see an air gap system that you can't breach. So many examples. Somebody actually from an engineering perspective hooks in a Excel server because they couldn't be bothered walking 400 metres down the road to go and actually maintain its level of disconnection from the internet. Plugging in USB keys, plugging in phones. That's a classic. I just want to charge the phone, so I plug the phone into a free port in a closed zone. There's so many ways of doing it. So really be critical of that. Once you've got those, then consequence. And when I'm saying consequence, positive and negative. Make sure every action you take is actually valuable and taking you further towards your vision. I've seen $5 million worth of kit sitting in the corner of a major piece of critical infrastructure that they bought on spec because somebody said they needed it and it was never installed. So, really think about it, because all of the money you spend should be on something that's actually going to protect you. There's a lot of products out there. There's a lot of products on level 1 or ground level and level 2. Be sure about each of the products out there. Really test it and really understand what's actually going to help where you're going. On that, yes, I will now take questions. Sorry. Any questions? Or is it completely clear and we're all good? Anything? It can even be about the block party last night. I'm happy to answer.
You mentioned a piece around having an inventory of your OT systems.
Yep.
Have you seen any really good shortcuts or ways you can do that, either identifying them or continuing to manage them?
Shortcuts, there's a good way of doing it. It's a combination, to be fair. You can actually run some scripts. There's a lack of automated scripts. You can run automated scripts in OT environment. But there's that trust element of running something that's pretty active in the environment. You can do it, so that's fine. You can run standardised scripts. So if I was to do it, I'd run a whole set of standardised scripts, download the vulnerabilities, then you do a walk around. You have to do a physical walk around. You can't just do it automated. Once you've done the walk around and you know where it's at, absolutely. Then keeping the register is really important, but apportioning vulnerabilities against your risk. So if a CVE comes out, you can actually look at the CVE, look at the, I won't name any PLC designs, but customer X, this is the level you have. The most crucial part of maintaining it is actually getting a system in place which stops people from just updating. Because in OT, we have engineering people, that system's down, absolutely they're going to get that system back up. But if you then don't go and apportion, actually we've upgraded this piece of software and so forth. The second part is, as you go through the vulnerability updates, again, you've got to keep a register of it. So there are some tools out there that can do it, but it's not one tool fits all at the moment, unfortunately.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions?
I've got a quick one, Jeremy. In your travels, you've sort of had exposure to multiple organisations that have a heavy reliance on OT. Have you seen any that have been particularly strong or good at this? And I guess my question is around the culture, rather than technology, but what are the people doing there in order to be able to move this forward that other people aren't?
Yeah, I know I've been in a few, and I won't name names or anything like that. Please don't go to my LinkedIn. I think culturally it's about outcome, because if the intent is to protect yourself, then that's not going to get the outcome. If the intent is you just want to sell something in there, it's not going to get the outcome. It's the outcome of actually making sure that something is protected. So from a critical infrastructure perspective, does anyone really, take this with how I say it, does anyone really care whether it's a cyber attack or a mechanical failure? The impact is still the same. So for me, it's about the culture of actually wanting to actually drive that outcome and be conscious enough to actually drive it forward. That's really important, and being there and ready, because when an attack hits a piece of critical infrastructure, we haven't seen a piece of critical infrastructure go down yet, and we haven't seen the ramifications from a perspective of how that's going to happen. Any other questions? No?
What do you think, Billy? Thanks for the presentation, Jeremy.
Sure.
What do you think are the silver bullets for culture change in the OT security space as a former OT manager? Back in the 2014, 2015, 2016, I implemented change management at a water utility. That was the biggest way of having culture change and OT risk looked after for that particular posture of that organisation.
Yeah.
Are there other silver bullets that you could point to?
Yeah, culture change, especially in OT, especially at the engineering level, is an interesting one. The people, as you know, being from that industry, the engineering capability is incredibly strong, incredibly capable people. But without the exposure to the cyber risk component, it's a challenge to build it in there. So, when you want to make something work, you don't necessarily are concerned about, secured by design or any of those elements that you need to do. I don't necessarily think there's a silver bullet. I think the best way, the closest thing to a silver bullet, is the actual understanding the assets and the vulnerabilities and having that conversation through the culture change. And you quickly see environments that embrace it. And really for me, if I go in an organisation, I'm going to find the champion, the one person who absolutely gets this, and that person then feeds the other two and the other three and so forth. We're in a bit of a challenge on that silver bullet side because there's so much, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, and there's so much negativity in the space that sometimes it sort of almost feels like, why bother? And so I think for me, it's actually just getting people to understand their environment as a risk and taking that how it looks and then pushing the culture change. I don't think there is a silver bullet. I just think mainly it's from a SCADA PLC component, yes, start to build security inside it, start to slowly train people up. And I just think we genuinely should start training people the basics of cybersecurity at an engineering level. So, but I'm happy to take any feedback, so I'm always looking for silver bullets.
Any final questions for Jeremy? Jeremy Hulse.
Is this a heckle or question?
Oh no, it's a question, mate. So just in the years working around those mixes of technologies, are you seeing still that OT view this as IT's problem, forcing that onto OT's environment? So you're talking about culture change, you talk about how the impact that has on OT environments and educating OT environments. So what I have seen, but maybe yourself, have you seen that as an IT versus OT kind of?
Yes and no, and it's not one way or the other. So I couldn't say it's an OT against IT and IT against OT. They're two very different domains. It's like the Essential 8 being applied to the SOCI Act. The absolutely valid capability, but doesn't necessarily apply to an OT in its entirety. Parts of it absolutely do, but you can't just go and automate upgrades. Where I am, I know for a fact, you go and automate a vulnerability, a patch, it can bring down a whole system. So I think for me, it's actually IT learning how to talk with OT and OT actually opening up a bit more about IT coming in. It absolutely has to, it's a sort of a coming together of minds. But so it's not a technology only solution, to answer that point. Alex is wandering now. He's got the roving mic, it's great, I love it.
Searching for a hand to just fly up in the air. If there's no final questions, Jeremy Hulse, massive thank you for taking the time on behalf of the group here today, but also on behalf of MESA for writing the paper. Congratulations on being selected to give the presentation. Hugely important content and subject matter there. So if we could, a round of applause for Jeremy. Thank you for his time. And then we'll always speak a gift. We're giving sort of funds to Australian wildlife conservation. And that's where we're directing our funds this year. So thanks again.
Thank you very much for appreciate it.